Hello YouTube, Mishka Valhalla here. Hope you all are still enjoying quarantine. I know I am definitely not, but that's another issue. So it's good to have you all here for those who are watching. Um, if you didn't watch my last video, it was on Fate in the Runes. This video will focus primarily on the animistic roots of heathenry, as well as animism within the home, and in regards to house spirits and land spirits and so on. So in the heathen community, first off, the subject has been talked to death, technically. So, a lot of the things I'll be saying aren't very new for people who are very, um, you know, well in tuned with the heathen community, listening to all the different things that people are saying and such, especially on the YouTube platform and every other platform. But, again, I do recommend content creators we focus on heathenry in the description, and I will do that at the end of this video as well. So, so animism, heavily talked about. It's the idea that every single object, every piece of nature, everything that has a physical manifestation possesses a spirit, a being, or a soul, or whatever you'd like to call it, a self, an identification. Um, and essentially that's expressed throughout all the myths and throughout all the sagas is an idea of animism where objects have names and have meaning and importance, and you can find that all over um, the world as well. Different cultures around the world that have animistic roots or tend to be the most ancient and the most indigenous groups, and they look at the trees and they believe that they're inhabited by spirits, or they themselves have spirits, or the stones have spirits. I know that many people in Iceland nowadays still believe in the other folk, or what the Celts would call the Fae, who are the land Vatir, or the light elves in heathenry. There's a lot of remnants from the animistic past where spirits inhabit everything, including houses. And that's the other subject I'm going to talk about is how to honor your house spirit. That's something that I've been kind of struggling with here and there because I've been around a lot. I used to live in Alaska and now I live in Miami, so my house spirit has switched, drastically. So I didn't really focus on that when I came here. I've more focused on the gods, and I'm more focused on, my family and ancestry. But I definitely was neglecting my house spirits, which could very well, for anybody, be in part their ancestors or just beings that dwell and inhabit the area, non-threatening beings. It's not like a demon possessing something. You know, and the idea of a house spirit, a house patron, goes through many pagan cultures. You could call it your cough god. I think that's a term that was used in heathenry for a god or a being, or what the Saxons would call a brownie, or excuse me, brownie or a hob, like a house hob, that inhabits the home and basically protects the home, along with whatever blessings you give. I have Thor's hammer over my doorway, and I wear Thor's hammer for protection, but at the same time, I know that my house spirit, is very good at keeping watch, and I'm sure to thank them for, being so supportive and helpful. And you can always measure that with your luck in certain areas. Like sometimes, I'll have bad luck in a certain area. Sometimes it'll just be filled with bad people, but sometimes it's not physical people you see. Sometimes you have bad luck in an area because the spirits don't want you to be there, and that's what you'll encounter a lot if you go to an area of nature, where maybe you constantly trip, maybe you always lose something, or even worse, it's the same thing you keep losing when you go there, or you just lose it altogether, but besides the point. Um, there's uh, people can be mischievous, animals can be mischievous, and spirits can be mischievous. But they can also recognize the fact that you're disrespecting their land. and that's when you cut down trees without permission. That's when you, especially if it's a sacred space with a lot of energy, usually people who can kind of tap into energy as a concept, you usually can, people who have a lot of empathy, or at least some empathy, can usually sense that an area is important. But, obviously, a lot of that has faded away since the Christian conversion of Europe, especially in the Western world. This connection to the energy of the earth itself and to nature, it's been dwindled and damaged countless times. But, you know, as heathens, I'm sure you all know that. As people just learning about this, it's a common motif you'll see, um, of returning to nature and, incorporating the natural world into our spirituality, because our spirituality is a reflection of the natural world. And that's what you get from ancient world religions, including from the Greeks, including from the Romans, the Slavs, the Baltic people, many African peoples, Asian peoples, the Chinese, the Koreans, all going back. They all have forms of shamanism and polytheism, and it's all paganism. It's all old world religion, and all these religions have a sense of animism. And animism is evidentially, if not the oldest, one of the oldest known spiritual concepts known to man throughout history, because when we first were conscious enough and sentient enough to recognize the world around us and perceive what is sacred, you know, we started to perceive the sacred within the world around us. We started to see the trees as sacred, and we didn't really know the science, to tell that the trees are required for us to breathe oxygen. And for this world to thrive, there must be trees and forests and water. But, somehow our ancient ancestors decided that something as simple as a tree is sacred, especially particular trees, later down the line with the Germanic peoples and the Celtic peoples, many other groups, they had sacred trees, in the center of certain communities, or sacred oaks, in honor of Thor, to, you know, uh, protect the land and consecrate it. Like, that's the idea of the pillar, or the, it could be a god pole, or it could be Irmansul, which was what the Saxons used and was cut down by the Franks, but by Charlemagne. But it was, a sacred symbol to the community, and it was like Yggdrasil, how it supports. It's like the world axis. It's the center of all the 9 realms. Um, and if we're speaking in Saxon terms, I think it's 7 realms, but I'm not entirely sure. I could make a separate video on that. That would be very interesting, since I've been tapping more into the subject of Saxon heathenry, which is, well, heathenry, but through a Saxon lens. Same gods, different names and such, in slightly different mythology, most likely as well. Those are the gods that the days of the week are named after in most Germanic slash English-based languages. And English is a Germanic language, though it does have a lot of Latin and Norman influence, which is already mixed with Norse and Frankish, or Old French, Frankish, that general area. But the days of the week, Wednesday is Woden, Thursday is Thunor, and Monday is Mani, the different gods and goddesses of the Germanic pantheon are what the days are named after in Germanic languages, whilst in the Latin-based languages, such as Spanish and Italian, the days of the week are named after the Olympic gods of the Greco-Roman peoples. So, you can kind of already see that cultural pattern and essence still showing to this very day. But yeah, back to the subject of the house spirit. Some houses may not have a spirit. Maybe you don't feel a presence in your house. What I was talking about, finding sacred spaces, and all about feeling listened to. It's all about the energy you get back, and the luck or the fortune you get back from giving to this being you feel listened to, or this being, that, sends you messages or information. If you don't feel that from anything in your house, then you probably don't have a spirit in your house. but if you do, it's very beneficial to exercise, keeping, most of the house clean if you can, um, keeping things organized, just maybe dedicating a small space to the house spirit. Um, I think, God, I can't remember the word that the Romans or the Greeks used for their house spirits, but I know that for the land spirits, there was the naiads and the dryads and the nymphs and numerous other beings that dwelled in the land, which were essentially the land spirits that kept the land green and helped with harvests and fertility, and that's what the light elves were typically called upon for their fertility magic and their association with their lord Freyr, who is the god of fertility, prosperity, good weather, brother of Freya, and it all kind of links together. The whole animistic symbolism within heathenry and within many old world religions is every single object being important. Otherwise it's not important. If it's not important, well, you get the idea. Like anything that doesn't have a name is not important. But when you read the stories and when you look into the sources and the archaeology, you see that many of these gods, not only do they have human-like qualities, but they're very symbolic. And when you read uh, the translations of their names, you find out that many of their names, have a particular meaning, and therefore it goes deeper. This god, their name translates to thunder. Sure, he's Thor, the god of thunder, but what does Thor do as a god of thunder? He fertilizes the land. But then again, there's also the light elves, the Alfar. Um, you know, I mentioned Heimdall in a previous video. His name means great land or this great land or something like that. How he watches over the land and he can, hear a blade of grass growing on Midgard or a hair growing on a sheep or something like that. But all the gods, their names mean something. Odin meaning fury or ecstasy. It just pulls into a deeper meaning. And when analyzing all this mythology, it is important to understand symbolism and metaphor at the very least. But I've said that before for those of you who have watched my videos. But anyway, but yes, the spirits of the land, the spirits of the home are both important within the practice. Some people don't click with it, big chances are is likely, you don't have a house spirit. But the land spirits are um, very important in my opinion. Some people mainly click the gods, sure, whatever. Some people have, follow one particular deity or two. Um, like I said, heathenry, I don't care. It's up to the practitioner how they do it, but um, you know, from the information, according to the information we have, and according to my own personal understanding, is that the land spirits and the spirits of the home were incredibly important for the daily lives of country folk, heathens during the Norse, the Viking Age and before. The people as a whole were very close to fertility gods, very close to the earth, very close to the elves, and all these things were very important because this is their livelihood. That's why you would see a lot of people worshiping the Vanir more than the Aesir, because the Aesir were very hierarchical. Odin being god mainly of skalds and of kings and jarls, and um, uh, Freya, having a probably a similar cult between matriarchies, but also having a bigger, wider cult in honor of Freya and those who wish to end up in Sisrumnir or Folkvanger. Again, there's not much info we have, but from what we know, we can definitely draw uh, conclusions that many different afterlives were, believed in many different places. One could end up based on the nature of their death or the nature of their life, usually both combined. But yeah, I can make a separate video about that. But yeah, so honor the land spirits if you can. Think about what type of spirits inhabit your land. Do you live in a tropical environment? Do you live in a northern environment, the type of environment that I prefer, but I have made somewhat of a peace with the spirits of this land. Um, but that's just my own journey. It's all about you. It could improve luck, financial stability. There are some good benefits. Excuse my phone. My phone keeps going off. There is some good benefits to taking care of the land, therefore taking care of the land spirits and the spirits of the home if you have them. But yeah, with any further ado, animism, I will say, finally, to end this video, that it is important within heathenry. You'll hear this a lot, and it's because it's true. Because when you compare neighboring cultures and when you look at the sources, you see so many clues that draw to animism. The sacredness of nature, multiple forms of consciousness within trees and the land itself, within fire. Everything is just so significant and important. And it's important to focus on what's important. And that's, it's definitely helpful to look more into the spirits of the land and the spirits of the home and animism as a whole, and understanding, like what stones matter to you, or maybe you feel connected to a type of wood. Maybe you should make a walking stick out of it, especially if you have places you go hiking. Maybe there's a place in the mountain where you go to honor the gods. Maybe you should make a stick out of the wood you feel connected to. Maybe it shows up in some sort of spiritual zodiac of yours, or whatever you believe in. What connection do you have to that material, that object, and based on how important it is, decide whether or not that this is something you want to work with and something you want to give energy to. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. If any of you have further questions, just comment. Please like and subscribe. Please stay tuned for future videos, and thank you.